We're back and we're going to do a quick bit of painting. So just working with the wheel well doors. Right, so that's the interior of the roof panel painted. We'll get the wheel well doors. Just nearly got there, but just about to run out of paint. So this is gloss black with, I think it's got some matting agent in it, and I made it into satin black. So that's your XF18 equivalent. So it should dry back to a nice matte satin finish. We'll not bother painting the outside. Seems we're going to do that when we do the exterior of the plane. So we'll let them dry up a minute, and then we'll come back in with the interior color XF22 for RLM02. Back. So the paint's flashed off now. It's still tacky, but it's good enough to paint on. We'll get good adhesion of the upper color of paint. So RLM02, so it's XF Tamiya XF22. This is quite an old bottle, so it's well thinned straight from the bottle. So just starting in the center of the panel. Yeah, get that in the frame. So once we've got that sort of pre-shading on, and we can come in and just do a fine overall coat. Make sure to get the sides here. As I said before, when you're doing these panels, it's actually quite good fun just to practice a little. Just doing these techniques to see how it all works out. There's it. It's all done. Nice little bit of tonal variation. Realistically, it's a panel we're not going to see much of because it's going to spend most of its life on the aircraft unless we're taking it off to show the interior. Same for the inside of the wheel wells. This bottom edge here is obviously going to be downmost, so it will catch the most light. If you imagine, it will be down like so. So most light's going to be on the bottom. So we want to start here. And just work it along the edge, but feather it down into the wheel well. So you've got the darker shadow in the corner. And you just want a hint of colour in the top there. We want the bulk of the colour along the bottom here. You can see that. So it's like a, what do you call a zenithal highlight. Just remember to stop. Edges will be really well lit, purely because they'll be catching the most light, but there you go. Bit of tonal variation in there, bit of shadow built in, and we can always go back in and build some more in. And if you want to put more highlights in, then just lay another top coat down. It will make it stronger. So the whole point of working with a black base coat is it helps you keep shadow in your paint. Build shadows, and then the more color you put down, then the more opaque it becomes, the brighter that highlight becomes. There we go. So that's the undercarriage wheel wells painted. Like I said, if you want to come back in and put some more colour or diffuse that colour, just go back in and spray a little bit extra, and it'll lift the colour up and reduce the shadows. You can see this one now, it's drying up. There you can see the sort of forced shadow we've got next to the ribs and the highlights in the centre of the panels. So it's a very, very quick and easy way to get some color variation, tonal variation in your panels, and you can do that with any color. So you can see how quick and easy it is. Alright, and that's that. So Happy that that's all gone in nicely. That means now we're at a position we can get, once this dried, we can mask this off here, which will then shield the fuselage from paint from the top. And we'll look to get some masking done in here. The other thing we need to do with the RLMO2 paint is to come and spray over the windows and over all these parts here to get the interior colour to show through. Plus it will give us an opportunity to check seams, any areas that need a little more work. So you want to dust it on, you don't want to flood it on. And once you've dusted on and let it dry just a moment, come back in and lay down a bit thicker colour. So we've got all these side windows to do. There we go, that's us out of paint for that colour cup. So I'll get the colour cup loaded up and we'll carry on and we'll get some more, all this paint laid down. Pop that in there just to kind of close off some of the top. So it's starting to look really, really good. So yeah, I'll get this finished off and then we'll come back and we will pretty much be ready for putting down a layer of primer. And think about paint. So it's, yeah, fast moving ahead, which is really, really good. So see you again shortly. So just quickly back, and it really is just to show you the nose section. Now we've got the interior green paint on, and I think hopefully you can see, if I zoom out a little bit, there you go, you can see the overall shape of the aircraft now has fully come together. It's huge. I know I keep saying it, but it's true, guys. It is a massive, massive model. But both sides of the upper surfaces and lower surfaces of the front canopy look really good. We've got a general primer for the interior colour over all the aircraft windows now. So going to let this cure overnight, and then tomorrow night then we will come back in. We'll mask this up here, and then we'll look at actually getting a coat of primer over just to see if we can find any more errors in the seams, you know, any spots we've missed, just whatever, and get this aircraft to the point where we can really, really push on and start getting the camouflage colors laid down and move the build head. So there we go. Welcome back, guys. So moving on from where we left off, we've got mask applied to the interior of the roof panel, and I have got the Bombay masked up, done a little bit of seam work here and here and on the tail. We've got the second undercarriage fully assembled, ready for paint, and got things like spinners, props, got the rear tail wheel flap, and we've got the two wheel well flats there ready for paint. They've obviously been painted on the interior, so we are actually pressing on quite nicely. So the next job is to prime. But before I prime, what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray all this RLMO2 paint that we put down with a little bit of our satin black, and that's really to solidify the color, so it'll make it what they call light fast. So at the moment this color's gone down, but it's still a little bit translucent as it's gone over clear styrene. So when you've got a light source shining on the outside and you're looking through, you can still see that kind of semi-translucent color. So if we get the XF1 sprayed over it, then what's going to happen is it will actually make it completely light fast, and it will give us a true color on the inside without that light shining through, which will give us that sort of more solid definition that we're needing for the metal work and the framing for the glazing. So that's the first thing I'm going to do, and then once we've done that, then it's going to be spraying on the upper, well, the primer itself, and that's really to just unify the whole surface and to blend obviously all the photo etch in with the plastic and just give us one all over color. Now I've got a couple of choices that I can use. I can either use Mr. Hobby Base 1000 White, or I can just use the Primer Surfacer 1000 Grey, which is probably what I'm going to use. This one's already been thinned with lacquer thinners to get it to go through an airbrush. So we'll probably just give it an all over grey prime, which will then highlight if there's any areas or seams we need to finish off, and it'll give us a unified colour then to think about doing the actual camouflage colours. The other thing to think of when we're doing camouflage colours is the sheer size of this. And you could do loads of different ways. Obviously you see me doing a lot of sort of black basing where we start with a dark primer and then mottle on our paint surface and then put a blend coat over the top. I'm actually going to move away from that this time. That's why I'm probably going to go for the light grey primer. And we're going to do it slightly differently, where I'm going to use the base coats and then we're going to focus more on doing tonal variations with lightening and darkening the actual base color we're using. And we're going to airbrush those faded effects on, and there's one or two other things I want to try, things like, you know, spatter or splatter effects, where you turn the air pressure down, you get a more dense spray pattern, so you get more defined spotting over the surface, and then you obviously blend over the top of that, and that gives you a little more tonal variation, similar to the using a disruptive template, but you just use the airbrush to do it. So that's a few different paint techniques I want to focus on. Trying to move it away from what I've done before. We'll look at a different way of painting, but obviously we need to do something to make this look a little interesting, otherwise it's just going to be a great big plastic toy, and we want to try and bring some life in to the paintwork. So enough of my waffling, let's get the airbrush. I'm just going to use my glary Ace GHAC 98 with I think it's got a 3mm needle nozzle assembly in it, so we can lay down a nice smooth coat of paint. We're not hamstringing ourselves with a 0.2 nozzle. So as always, a little bit of thinners through just to wet the whistle, as they say. Now this black has been thinned already quite a lot, so we don't need to actually thin much of it, and we want it to have a reasonable adhesion to the paint, so we want it to grip. The other thing to think of using a semi-gloss black is it will actually seal this paint a bit more. Being a matte finish, this is dead matte, it's a little bit porous, so this paint will help to seal that paint up a little. There we go. So we're just laying that down. I'll do the side windows whilst we're at it. This is going to be the thing for this aircraft, is getting it in the frame. We can see where we've obviously got a bit of overspray here, so we're going to give this all a wipe down, just with some alcohol thinners. May as well do this top seam whilst we've got some paint left in the colour cup. And you can see there's obviously something on this plastic that is reacting with the paint. So I'm not going to bother spraying anymore. I'm quite happy with how the glazing is looking. But we're obviously going to have to get in here with some alcohol and wipe all this down because it's reacting with the paint. Now, since we've got some left in the colour cup, I'm just going to spray the spinners. So it's out of paint, so we'll top the paint up. Just about out of that paint actually. That is the one thing we're going to do with this model, is use paint, and lots of it. We've got a little bit left, so we may as well have a look at the props and see if we can't paint them. See how they turn out. I'll do the reverse first. There we go, there's a prop done. They look quite impressive once they've got a bit of coat on them. Right, I'll find somewhere to stick this down, I think, to dry. That's good. Right, so I'm going to let this dry off. You can see here and here, there's obviously some contamination on this plastic that's going to affect the paint adhesion. So once this is dried off, and before we go anywhere near it with Mr. Surfacer, I'm going to get IPA alcohol, and we're going to wipe down the whole surfaces. Obviously we're going to stay away from the nose. That's looking really nice. Certainly quite impressed how that's all gone together, because it was pretty ungainly and I was a bit unsure about it, but I'm happy with that now. And I also need to mask this before we go any further, which is the landing light. But we're really pressing on with this. So next time I say we'll be back, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to prime this off camera, because it's going to be so much easier. We'll get the extractor on, get the respirator on, we'll get it primed. I'll do any remedial work if there's any seams or anything, because I can see a seam here that needs blending in, so we'll do all that, take care of all that, And then when we come back, we'll be ready to start putting down the first layers of camouflage color, which will be the underside color, and that is RLM 65. And I'm not actually sure what paint I'm going to use for that, because I do have Mr. Hobby Aqueous color. I have got Vallejo Model Air, and I think there's maybe even a Tamiya color that's close to RLM 65, but I will get the right color, and we will get in and start getting the camouflage scheme down, and we'll start pushing this ahead, which is really, really good and really, really exciting. So we'll see you again shortly.